Welcome to the webinar. These workshops are designed to provide knowledge so that you can capture issues promptly, solve them, educate other users in your organization, and get to know more about the VMS tools that streamline the subledger reconciliation process. My name is Valeria Vico, and I serve as the financial consultant at VMS 365. Before we begin, I'd like to tell you a little bit about my story. When I started helping visual users while going from one visual site to another, after building and running some audits, I encountered the same issues over and over: costing problems, reconciliation discrepancies, and financial reporting issues. So I thought there has to be a more effective way to do these tasks. I then realized that I could help more people if I could systematize the troubleshooting process to get to the source of the problems more quickly. Today, I'm going to review visual concepts that will help you understand why discrepancies happened and tools you can use to get to the issues quickly to be able to solve those problems effectively. So let's begin. So visual, as any ERP, has its own business logic. What's a business logic? Well, the business logic is the programming that manages the communication between the user interface and the database. So visual needs to make sure that certain rules are respected so that it can operate properly. So for example, visual allows us to have negative quantity on hand at some point. But at month end, we have to make sure that the quantity on hand is zero or positive in order for the system to cost the transactions properly. Because if we have negative on hand, then visual cannot cost accurately. So we have to clean that up. When this rule is broken, discrepancies between the transactions and summary tables may happen, and then we have to use a fix to correct them. Okay? So this is quite critical. We also need to understand certain basic concepts that we have within the ERP. We have to understand what costing method we're using, if we're in actual cost, if we are in standard cost, if we're in average cost. If we are in actual cost, are you using FIFO by part, FIFO by location? Your WIP costing method that I mentioned previously, is it WIP projected or is it actual? So if you don't know all those things, it will be more difficult to understand why discrepancies happen and how you can fix them. So I would encourage you to go and check your system and find this out. We also need to know about control accounts. So what are the control accounts? Control accounts are those accounts that the ERP will use when posting transactions to subledgers. Inventory accounts that could be set up in your GL interface or in the product code table, or sometimes at the transaction level. So those control accounts need to be used carefully, because if we don't use them properly, then we end up having discrepancies. And the other key concept is to know the journal types. Journal types are the type of subledgers that are in visual. Subledgers are listed here under the green section. It is important for you to know that and to know the name of each subledger so you can go to the right place or identify the transactions as soon as they get posted. So within the ERP, there are two types of data. Detailed data is where transactions happen. We inventory transactions, purchase order receipts, work order issues, shipments, adjustments. That type of data is stored in detail tables. Then the ERP will summarize, visual will cost, for example, those transactions. And will transfer that data into what's called summary tables. So in order for the summary tables to be properly summarized, we have to make sure that the data in the detailed tables are correct or following certain rules. So when they don't, when there is no, when the rules are broken, that's when the inconsistencies happen. And there are two types of inconsistencies. We can have data inconsistencies, or we can have transaction inconsistencies. For example, data inconsistency is when we have transactions that are expected to be seen in one period, but they show up in another. Well, maybe we run costing utilities this month, but we forgot to run it the previous month. Visual will prevent you from doing that, but there are cases that I've seen that happening. Transaction inconsistencies is when the value of in a summary table does not equal the sum of the values in the detailed tables. For example, in the valuation report or the inventory transactions listing, we see a group of transactions with certain values, but when we look at the inventory balances report, the values don't match. Why this is happening, or what are the main sources of costing discrepancies? So we find disruptions of the transaction sequence. We let visual go negative and we didn't correct that negative at month end. My valuation will not be right. We issued material, labor to a work order after the work order was closed, and that issuing of material or labor is in a future period, in the following period. Linked PO receipts entered after the work order was closed. So obviously my valuation of the work order at that time, at month end, is not correct because I'm missing those transactions that are posted in the future. Incorrect data input. Many times it happens that when a labor ticket is entered, the quantity completed on that labor ticket is greater than the required quantity. That was just a typo, but it happens. It's an incorrect data input. And if the part was auto-issued, the requirements are auto-issued, then visual will over-issue the required material. And then we have a valuation problem on the work order side. Certain actions or inactions could cause discrepancies. So for example, a change of product code on a part file, or a work order closed manually. The only way we close a work order is by receiving it into inventory or shipping it out the door. Those are the two acceptable methods. If I close it manually, then the value gets stuck in my WIP report, but actually the work order may have been used already. So, or the part manufactured on that work order may have been used. So that's another disruption. There could be disruptions also, or inconsistencies created by the system itself or network generated, such as zero batches, summary account balances not matching to details, or missing distribution records. So those are a little bit more advanced type of issues, and we need to basically troubleshoot them. This is Valeria Vico. Again, thank you for watching. It was really a pleasure. See you at the next event. Bye-bye.